Welcome to the Gravel Lot, the place where bikes are for everyone.
The Gravel Lot podcast is presented by Be Free Ride Bikes Apparel, providing a fully customized cycling apparel experience to provide you and your team the attention to detail and personal touch that you deserve.
And also brought to you by Grimpour Brothers Coffee, offering handmade coffee roasted weekly in small batches to give you the finest quality coffee to start your day. Choose their subscription service and earn your free bag of coffee today.
And by Hand Up Gloves. Great gear, better times. Providing a wide range of apparel for bikes, snow sports, and golf in multiple designs and fits to let your personality shine.
Our goal with the Gravel Lot is to inspire cyclists of all stripes to ride bikes, share their story, and have fun. We love all bikes and anyone who wants to ride them. So no matter where you sit on the spectrum of bikes, we'll always have a place for you in the Gravel Lot.
And now, the hosts of TGL, John Woolry and Doug McClintock.
Hello and welcome back to the Gravel Lot. I'm John, that's Doug, and we are so glad that you found us. We are back for Season 5. We have, for those on the live stream, we have new graphics. For those in the podcast, hopefully they showed up.
Hopefully you got the new graphics.
Apple's being difficult, but whatever. So why are we here? What's going on? For anybody that's new, for anyone that's following us for a long time, you guys know. TGL, the Gravel Lot. We fully believe that the only thing better than a bike ride is sharing one with your friends. And on those rides, some of the best stories are both made and told. We're here to bring that stuff to you. So our aim is to have a new guest on each week that has amazing stories, and we dive deep into their lives and help them really share who they are with you and help you guys have a better understanding of their life and just life in general. So whether you are an existing Pebble or entirely new to the show, welcome. We are so happy that you are here, and we hope you enjoy your stay.
Yeah, and if you like what you hear today, which we hope you do sincerely, and you want to show your support, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share the show with all of your bike friends. Whether you know the guest or not, if it resonates with you, please do that. We appreciate it. That's how we get into other people's ear holes. It's important that way. Please leave your comments below if you're on the live stream. If you're not, go check out our website, our Etsy store. Go support us on Patreon. And also go visit all the partners that we mentioned in the intro. They all have great products you should be getting your little paws on. If you want to send questions or feedback or anything like that, you can do that. We are at the Gravel Lot on all the social platforms. We have a contact form on the website, so you can send us long form stuff there. Or you can even give us a phone call at 513-400-5577. So we have a number you can prank call.
Elijah's not here.
Elijah is definitely not here. Yeah, this is not Elijah. So for Elijah, that is weird. So John, season 5. How are you feeling? What's up?
It's good. We got new graphics, new podcast art, new live stream art, new intro video. We've got a new website. The website is completely redone. Hopefully, it puts the content that you guys want to see way more front and center, so there's less clicks to get to, whether it's the Bike Shop Show, whether it's Pink Blue White, whether it's the Gravel Lot or Girls Moving Mountains. No matter what you are looking for, it is right there on the homepage now. Everything should be way easier to navigate. So
kudos to you, John. That was absolutely nothing of me. That was all you.
If you got a problem with it, send a contact form and I'll try and fix it. Maybe. If not, whatever. I might not.
Circular file.
Either way, we were talking about it a little bit as the intro video was running. Man, 4 completed seasons of a podcast. We're like, I know from a downloads number, we're like in the top couple percentage points of all podcasts, but I think the fact that that you guys keep listening for this long keeps kind of us coming back and us wanting to keep doing it. And I think that speaks volumes to what to what the stories that we bring you guys, like, we're just the vessel to make this happen. So I think it speaks volumes to just the watchers, the people watching the live stream, or the people downloading the podcast every other week.
Yeah, and that's definitely where I'm at this week as well, right? Is like a little bit of awe that we did a thing.
And we keep doing it. That's
the
the more kind of surprising part.
I've watched our relationship stay the same and others. I think it's great watching this from the outside perspective and from like a kind of like backed out lens, like what we're doing. And we know we had this conversation, and I think, we are very, very proud about the fact that we're able to bring people's stories to you. And we, in season 5, endeavor to continue that process to bring you people that we think are interesting and and I think that's a secret to what has made us better people. But I think finding ways and new ways and innovative ways to share all that information with you. So watch this space, and if you've got ideas for us in that, please send them along. We're season 5. We're going to take risks.
And I think even if it's someone, say that when we have somebody on that has a lot of social media followers, we get more down, like, that's fine, like, that's whatever, but that's not necessarily what this show is about. So have some faith in us. If we bring people on that you don't know who they are, today's guest is not one of those people, because I hope that most of you know who he is. But when we do bring those people to you, trust that we're doing it for a reason, and it's to broaden your scope, and it's to broaden your experiences, and it's somebody that we feel has a valid story to tell and a valid position.
Who I am so excited to talk about and talk with. They are we have some serious heat. So, John, without any further ado, let's see if the magic of the Zoom works for us. Yes, indeed it does. First and in one. So starting our new season and new year off strong, today we are joined by a person who has spent the better part of the last 2 decades, if not longer, trying to help nurture and develop the future of American cyclocross. Seeing and generating and working with countless successful U.S. riders from youth all the way up. A lot of folks can contribute a big part of their development to this guy, but he also has.
He knew all of them before they were cool.
Yeah, he knew. Well, he knew that when they were trying to figure out what cool was, they were like, I don't know, is this cool? I don't know, is Blink-182 cool? I don't know. And
Chappelle Show.
Not only done that, but he's lived a ton of life beyond just being coach. So, episode 1 of season 5 is none other than Geoff Proctor. Geoff, welcome so much to the Gravel Lot.
Thank you, Doug and John. Thank you so much. It's an honor, it's a privilege. It's a joyful moment for me to be part of this. And
that you have plenty, not only to teach and to share, but you have plenty of love to give. We've just been talking a little bit in the green room, and it's almost like you want to bottle those things up and be like, oh, don't share all of it yet, because you just get so excited when we start talking about whether it's USA Cycling or just comes across so well. So really, really excited to not only dig into some of your stories, but just what a lot of these things mean to you, and to hear kind of your perspective on living from the teacher and the coach perspective.
Yeah, super.
Yeah. We're stoked. So you are a Pebble, which we are very thankful for. So thank you for being a loyal Pebble. We are glad to have you aboard every week. But this first time of being in the hot seat over here. So where we like to start. We like to start with the genesis of everything. How did young Geoff discover bikes? Like where? So how did you go from, I don't know, what's a bike, to professional racer? Where did this kind of genesis begin for you?
Yeah, well, I guess, I've lived in Montana for most of my adult life, but I grew up in New England, and this is probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years before breaking away. What was that? 1979. So
I was a very wee babe when that came out. So,
but
sorry.
It was like the Raleigh chopper days with the baseball cards and the spokes and that sort of stuff in elementary school, ride to school. And then I don't know, there's probably a couple of formative moments in those years. There was this, we did this March of Dimes fundraiser ride from Concord, New Hampshire to Manchester, New Hampshire. And it was like 20 miles down, 20 miles back on the brand new Raleigh record, this white 10 speed. And man, that was just like, that was the beginning. I said, I don't know, this was something that I felt like I could really get into and lean in ever. And then during my college years to train for ski racing, we did a lot of riding. And that's kind of where I started to really get the bug. I think my first overseas experience was touring in England, France, and Switzerland, just with one other guy.
How did that come about? Like, how do you go from like, well, I don't know, we're into skiing and we got to do training and this bike thing seems fun. You know, we should do this summer. Let's go to England.
Well, I mean, during the college years, like I was riding to, these big rides. It was Middlebury, Vermont. It was doing those same stages that they do in the Green Mountain Stage Race now. Yep. And we're like racing on the road. They were doing reds times and just picking up all kinds of stuff. And then, all the ski teams would get together and have these like field days and we do all these different events. And I won the bike race when I was like, I don't know when it was. And then it was like, okay, let's go with a friend. Let's just go to Europe. And we just toured around, just the two of us. And that was the summer of 1981. And I said to my friend, we're going to see several stages of the tour. So we would ride and camp. And Jonathan Boyer was in the Stars and Stripes jersey as the first American in the Tour de France, 1981, I'm pretty sure. And then just from there, I'd say, after college, I started to really get the bug and almost regret that I was so into ski racing. And then started road racing when I was teaching in Portugal. One of my first years of teaching. My first races were in Portugal. With a hairnet and bogadinho.
Un pouquinho, yeah.
Yeah, so it was really that was the beginning. And then from there, I think my introduction to cyclocross, I wrote about this in my book, was this really grainy big TV. I was teaching in Lisbon and I turned it on and it's 1986 Lembeek, Belgium World Championships. And it's just muddy and it's just running. And I was like, wow, like cycling and running, that's what I want to do. And that was the beginning. And I was quite old. I was like 25, 26 years old.
Yeah, so. That is, I mean, I think it was a little bit more normalized at that point of coming at it a little bit later. I mean, you're not developing somebody from 12 years old and then having a Vanderpool or a Wout.
A lot of sports were that way though.
World Championships.
It wasn't necessarily like, cool, you're 12, now you're going to be one.
Okay, so you've already mentioned kind of both of the parallel paths that we're going to probably stay on the two train tracks here for the rest of this conversation for the most part of balancing teaching and racing, and you get fairly serious with racing cross and racing around the world, and while still balancing being a full-time teacher. First off, how do you get into racing professionally and figuring out navigating from being just a college kid touring to trying to make money racing bikes in the mud and running, but also at the same time teaching English to 17 and 18-year-olds? How do those two things correlate to each other and kind of play off of each other, or do they at all?
Yeah, I mean, it was all definitely a duality, a dual lifestyle for a long time. I think, let's see. Basically, a couple of guys, we started teaching ourselves cyclocross in like 1986, 7, 8 in Missoula, Montana, and watching videos. And then I got my first public school teaching job around that time, the early 90s. And somewhere in there. And then I decided I wanted to take a year off. I had this opportunity to race with a couple of guys from Colorado on an Italian team, and we were based outside of Zurich, and we raced the full Swiss cyclocross season back when Switzerland was the epicenter of cyclocross.
Oh,
and that was GS Guercioti, and Guercioti frames are still around today and doing well. And so I wasn't teaching that particular year, but that was sort of the beginning of like, okay, like I'm never going to, I did 3 world championships in the early 90s, the 93, 94, 96. But I knew that my pathway was going to go towards the coaching, directing, mentoring piece, because I wasn't, lighting the world on fire in the mid 90s.
So
Yeah.
Let me pause there for a second. That's an interesting waypoint for you to have the personal awareness at, what are we talking?
I was pretty old. I was like
So
30 years old. Yeah.
30 years old. There are a lot of 40.
I was still pretty dumb at 30.
There are a lot of 40 and 50-year-old cat twos who think they're going to go win a world championship right today, right? Like, there are those people. Like, where in your makeup, Geoff, does your brain make the connection? Like, okay, I can do this and be good, but this is not A, where I'm going to make my living, but B, where my actual passion lies. How do you discover that? How do you break that down in your head? Because a lot of people can't move away from their own personal athletic dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think there were a lot of ways that I came about that. I mean, first of all, I was quite a bit older, and I had spent, after I graduated from college, I had, ski racing and tennis were religions for me. I was as into those sports as I was into cycling, as I'm into cycling now. And I just I just took a break after I graduated. Like, I needed a break. And I spent a couple of years working my way around the world, literally just off the grid, hitchhiking across Australia, commercial fishing in Alaska. And during that time, reading a lot. And I was like, okay, and so that was before I started really getting into cyclocross. But during those years, I thought a lot about what I wanted to do, because I didn't know, and teaching became that goal. And so I as I started to teach and as I started to race, I just started to realize, okay, Van der Poel's winning this world championship. He's lapping me in 45 minutes into the race in 1996 in Paris. And, I'm getting lapped probably around the same time by Paul Harreigers in Coxide in 1994. And it's just that was the height of some other sort of an era that we don't look too fondly on, but in terms of professional cycling. But I was sort of just carving my own path, and I just really wanted to figure out, because I just love the sport so much. So that's when I started to go, okay, the big picture here is I want to dedicate myself to helping others more talented than myself to get to where they want to go.
So this is an interesting inflection point, kind of to build on what Doug was saying. Is one, there's the piece of it of know thyself, of understanding of okay, getting your head kicked in week after week after week sucks, and it's hard to not come to
Van der Poel.
By the one that won the world championship that year, not the one that's not going to win the world championship this year. But also, Doug, to your point, there's a lot of 40 and 50-year-olds pissed that they didn't get nominated to this year's Worlds team, and that's a whole different conversation.
They've got plenty of opinions.
Yeah, everybody's got opinions on that. But there's the other piece of it of, we have so many people come on the show to talk about building trails in their local pocket park, or getting bike lane access, or getting more people on bikes, or getting more kids on bikes, or any of those things. And the best question that we love to always ask them is, how did you go from that would be cool as an idea to putting that out into the world? So as you're working through these emotions of, hanging up your racing cleats and saying, I freaking love this sport. I know a lot about it. I've taught myself a lot of these things. I know how to be a teacher. I understand the learning styles. I understand how people absorb knowledge and how they get better. How do you take that and then develop that into what's become, the Eurocross Academy? Walk us through how, I think not even so much the pragmatic piece of it, but the kind of the internal process of assembling the things inside of your own head of how do you know what you need, and how do you know how to go find funding, and just all of those things. Because I think there's this consistent black box that people put around the finished product of, they look at what you've accomplished and they're like, well, you probably had blah blah blah, and they write it off and they try and you know, kind of post justify your successes and throw away all the hard work that you've put into it. But there's an actual like A to Z that you've taken. So kind of walk us through your acceptance process of hanging up your racing, but then the transition of you internally of like, no, I can rudder a little bit to the right and focus my energies and use my superpower as a teacher to go make something better.
Yeah, boy, I don't know how well I'm going to answer this, but yeah, so I don't know, mid 90s, then late 90s Super Cup, and early 2000s, having been to Europe, having raced the World Championships 3 times, having done the Super Cup, starting to really start to build my Euro influences, contacts, and looking at the big picture going, okay, our nationals, I think 1989, they were in November in Milwaukee. Like our nationals moved around, but what are we going to do to get our riders ready for the World Championships, which are 6 weeks away usually? And that was something that really, that was sort of the beginning of the idea of Eurocross camp in 2002, 2003, which coincided with my first, I was asked to coach the U23s and juniors in 2002 in Zolder at the World Championships. That was my first World Championships as a coach. And so all of this was sort of coming together. The USGP I was technical director from 03 to 07 on the USGP, from the ground floor. The very beginning, it was just a couple of us, Bruce Fina.
Yep.
In the beginning, it was not, it was not what it was. My real determination to give back to, I don't know, like hard work and it's a certain level of fidelity, I guess, that I just have had all my life. And what I mean by that is a faithfulness towards this discipline of cycling, especially. I mean, I've coached on the road and mountain bike locally, but there's something about cyclocross that has just resonated with me since the beginning. And I've always wanted to create opportunities. And so that began with Eurocross camp in 02, 03. And then all these world championships and World Cup blocks with USA Cycling as an independent contractor. And then, I'm not able to cover enough ground when I have them at Christmas. I need to add some summer camps in 2011. So then summer camps became part of the prep for that. And then I did 5 years of the UCI international camp in Egla during those years. And so that's kind of where it all started. And then I merged it with USAC 2014, 2018, because I really was feeling the stress of raising my family and just like teaching all the time. Teaching, I've always felt, has handicapped me a little bit because it's a hell of a lot of work to teach an 80-hour week all the time. And so those years I needed a little to shoulder the burden with somebody, and that was great. And so that's really kind of the arc to the story. So what did I not cover?
So I mean, so it sounds like you, as a racer, saw that there was an outage, right? Like that there was an outage, and where you were trying to fill that need through coaching, right? Like saying, oh, I have the skill set. There's this thing that we're not approaching as a country. There's a thing that we don't like. We have cross happening here. It's starting to grow. Things are getting hot, but you saw that there was a way, because you'd already raced in Europe. You'd grown your skill set and been lapped by the right people, right? You'd seen the stuff. Like when you approach someone for the first time and said, hey, I've got this wild idea, I've done this stuff, I think I could help bring some people there. What was the reaction like? What did people like when you had this idea and you're like, hey, I'm Geoff Proctor, you may know me and you may have seen me on such races as being lapped by Mr. Vanderpool. Like, how does that go over? What's that read like? And what was the support like during that time? How did that play?
Well, I think it was an exciting time with USGP and that very first World Championships to bookend my 2003 2018. We had the best women's team in the world in 2003 and 2002 in Zolder. And in 2018, we were the number one women's team again. And so that was a really cool bookend to my time coaching. But okay, so I had help, and I have had incredible role models to help me. So in 2000, USAC had this, they started through Noël de Jonquière in West Flanders and Isegem with the USA House. And I saw that USAC had a mentor internship the summer of 2003. I went over and spent a couple months mentoring under a mentee of Noël de Jonquière, and he was driving the car. They had a triple program on the road. They had 3 different race programs. Well, and I'm indebted to him to this day for everything I learned from him. And during that summer, the whole time, I'm like, okay, Isegem, road, 3 programs, U23 program. I'm going to start a cyclocross program in the same house, in the same place at Christmas. And that was the first year, Christmas 2003. And we had Gina Hall and Carmen Richardson DeLucio getting top 10s in World Cups. And Allison Dunlap was on the scene, and Ann Knapp was coming onto the scene. And yeah, it was just an incredible time. And that began this sort of idea to like, we need to give our riders something to prep for Worlds. And I was always limited by my school schedule. I could only stay till January 3rd, and then I was back in the classroom.
Christmas. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So then there was still, a couple weeks till Worlds, but it was something. And man, I mean, just the riders that I worked with over those years, we were talking about Jeremy beforehand, but yeah. And I think you want to talk about perfect days, 2007, 3 silver medals. I mean, Katie and Jonathan Page and Danny Summerhill in Hoogle de Hits, which is very near where we were. And we were staying in the house at Worlds. And that was a hell of a day. Yeah.
So, okay. So you mentioned it, and I want to come back to that because I kind of want to unpack that from just an accomplishment perspective on your end. But you've mentioned it a couple times now of having these small windows to travel, and it's based around your teaching schedule and full-time English teacher teaching 17 and 18-year-olds English, which I feel like I probably need to take that class again because I feel like I'm still learning it. But so you have these very
Oxford,
like
comma, John, the Oxford comma.
I am a huge advocate.
I
will get in
Oxford
fights about the Oxford comma.
Geoff, Oxford comma? Yes, Oxford comma?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Just
Yes.
double checking.
Yeah,
3
we're all in
Oxford
agreement.
commas. Good.
Okay, so you have these very finite spaces to fit these pieces in, and you have little kids at the time, wife, family, friends at home. How does for those of us that feel overwhelmed on the days that we go to work 8 to 5, come home and record a podcast, and that feels like an overwhelming burden for the week?
Yeah, I'm about to up the difficulty level very soon, and I'm very concerned.
Yeah.
Please help me here.
How do you navigate, and how do you navigate as a part of the family, giving up Thanksgiving, giving up Christmas, giving up part of your summer to go chase and push this passion project forward?
Yeah. It definitely had its moments where it was super challenging. I tried many times. I brought my family to Europe with me at Christmas, and that, some years we couldn't, and some years we could. And, at the end of the day, like, I really am glad that we tried to do that, because our boys are very international in their interests. They're very comfortable traveling, and I see all of the seeds being planted there for that. And my wife has just been so supportive over the years of everything that I've done in cyclocross, and I'm supremely indebted to her. And then, the balancing with the teaching, I mean, it was very difficult to do all these years. And I think it starts with, I have, an incredible work ethic. I mean, I get to school at 5:30, usually 5:15. I need that morning time. I'm a super morning person to just quietly collect my thoughts for the day. And then, I sort of put into action concepts and ideas and principles that I use with coaching and teaching. They're interchangeable, patience, the collective, becoming better together, um, the, uh, the working hard, um, the holistic aspects. So all of that just works. It just dovetails really nicely with what I'm doing in cyclocross. So, um, yeah, I don't know.
Does it feel like a continuous thread, just with different people doing a different thing,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
moving
Yeah.
between these two worlds?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, COVID's been really tough on my teaching style. All my desks are in a circle. It's 100% discussion based. I'm teaching AP Lit, college writing and lit, and creative writing right now. Those are my three classes. It's all face to face. I want the body language. I want the eye contact. I want everybody seeing each other in the classroom. And COVID, we've had to separate and distance and all that stuff. It's been tough. And then applying that to just got back from Europe with 11 riders, 8 to 11 riders, and we're doing meetings every night. We're doing one-on-one meetings. We're training together. We're discussing things together. We're in the van together, and it's all sort of an extension. It's a thread. Yeah, 100%.
So, okay, so you go back to 2007. We have 3 silvers. How does that feeling of accomplishment compare to when the light bulb goes off for one of your students in class? Because there's those discovery moments. There's those, I think back to a very select couple high school teachers that I had that I can still cite by name, of people that changed directions of my life and helped form me as a human being and expand kind of where I was. And within that, there's very strong light bulb moments for me as a student. So again, if we're talking about these things on a continuum of you being the teacher and the nurturer, whether it's AP Lit and creative writing or it's cyclocross, how does the accomplishment of winning or coming close to winning and medaling at a global scale compare to those moments inside the classroom where you're helping form someone's opinion of the world or expanding kind of what they think they're capable of?
Yeah. I think, in terms of cycling, Eurocross Academy's sort of founding principles acknowledge the meritocracy of achievement, and that's bike racing. Okay. It's going to be results driven.
Yep.
And so there's that, which I often think about in the terms of the classroom, because, there's a billion teachers out there and there's a ton of good ones. And I guess, in AP, you have the AP test in May and you have a metric and you can actually, but for the most part, teaching is holistic. It's subjective, and it's the little triumphs, and it's helping students grow. And so the academy, it's this meritocracy of achievement, which is much more readily visible in cycling, less so in teaching. And then there's the paramountcy of character, which I work on extensively with the riders in Europe and in the US and camps. And I would say that component is far more visible in the classroom. And English, well, I really end up talking about how I teach life. And I don't mean personally I teach life. Literature teaches life. Literature is practice. Okay, so you read these great novels. You get students to try on these characters so they can air out and just get into the shoes of these characters, and then kind of see where they are with what this character is all about. And then that enables them to practice living. They need practice living, and then they can go out into the world more self-assured at sort of what their values are and what they think about. And so I see my role in the classroom as nurturing that. And it's the same thing in cycling. Like, these young riders, student athletes, need to practice living. They need to have opportunities to race. And I'll tell you what, your first race in Europe is Namur World Cup. I don't know. Like, that is a big ask. I fully acknowledge that. But let the students set the bar. Let the athletes set the bar. You know, give them something and give them an opportunity, and see what they can do with it. You know, that's sort of a cornerstone to my philosophy.
Yeah, Namur will teach you about living. It will teach you about a lot of stuff.
Right.
Real quick. Right.
And that's no different than, you know, cold calling somebody on this Virginia Woolf character. We just finished Mrs. Dalloway. Like, it's an intense novel. Like, so I don't know, you know, there's a lot of overlap. Plus I'm writing, I don't know, 40 letters of rec a year. Kids are getting accepted and denied and rejected at Stanford and Harvard or wherever. There's a ton of things that I do that are just beyond just the actual class time, you know? And so, yeah.
But that's such the depth of this, right? Like, you can go, that may be like, oh, wow, we went and we nailed it and everybody got into Harvard. Excellent.
Yep.
Good job,
Yeah.
team. You all did your job. But those aren't the ones that actually, like, that's fine. All of those things mean something to all of those athletes and to everybody that was part of that program. But the thing that's lasting is the way that they got there and the way that they built the character to get to that point. Because when you're faced with something hard, when you're faced with something crappy on the backside of it, and you've learned those skills, right? It doesn't matter whether it's bikes or literature or whatever. If you've built that in that student, you've created someone that's going to be a functional member of society. And a lot of these kids, that's fine if they go win World Cups, but like, really, cyclocross is a tiny microcosm within a tiny microcosm with a tiny microcosm. And if you break it down into the juniors and the U23s, it's even smaller, right? You can go and do top 10 there, but nobody in the United States cares, right? Like, we care, but no one on a larger scale cares. And you got to live with that. Like, cool, I went and did this thing, but you got to like pack that up. So I think it's important that the work you're doing to develop these kids as people
Bingo.
is the work.
Yeah.
That's the work.
It absolutely. You know, it's the big picture. Because how many of them are gonna, I mean, you need the performance and you want the performance, and there's a meritocracy to that performance, and you need to aspire, but it's about so much more. And I think back to all the great young people that I've worked with, and it's enriched my life, and I'm sure that it's, you know, in some way enriched theirs, you know. And I think I come back to this Greek proverb about, you know, great programs grow to greatness when the leaders plant trees whose shade they know they'll never lie in. You know, it's like, that's what teaching is. Like, I'm never really going to lie in the shade of what I'm doing now in the classroom, but that's okay. Like, it's believing in that process and believing that you're doing good for these young athletes and students. And that's really as good as it ever gets. And that's okay. Yeah.
You know, listening to you talk, it's clear that we're listening to somebody that's lived the miles, that's ridden the miles, that's gone through the experiences, that's gone through the losses, learned from the losses, learned from the wins, all of those different things. Which kind of leads me to the question, if we're talking about this genesis of Eurocross Academy, and hearing you talk so eloquently about it now, kind of on the, not necessarily on the backside of this, but we're almost 20 years into this academy that you started. Would you have been able to speak this way about it in 2003?
No. I mean, it's been a journey. It's been experiential learning. Yeah. So it's been everything in between has led me to where I am now. I mean, now Eurocross Academy is a nonprofit. It is, originally it was just a collection of camps. and now it's got a lot of sort of support and influence in terms of who's helping. And no, I couldn't have done it. And I really believe that those experiences sort of grounded me and created sort of my philosophy now. Hegel has a comment about the owl of Minerva flies at night. And that's an allusion to, you don't truly know, you don't acquire knowledge and wisdom until it's only in hindsight. It's sort of at the end, at the night. And that's kind of the way I feel. Like, not that I'm feeling like I'm ready to retire, but I just, just some of the people that I've learned from and the experiences and some of the struggles and some of the adversity to get to where I am now has really been formative. And that's the way it probably should be. Yeah.
So you're taking all my notes before I'm writing notes furiously at John because you understand this. But I was going to ask you, how have these kids changed you? But how have these kids changed how you approach your kids? This process, you've been coaching all these kids. How has this changed how you approach your family?
Well, yeah, I mean, some of the things, components I talked about, patience, we talk about, junior 17, 18s. You don't really know who's good. You honestly don't know on any given day.
They're all kind of just like a wild bunch of grown-up babies.
Right.
They're running around with they got lots of energy and a whole lot of like stuff.
And you don't really know, and you need to give coach now, but a good friend and mentor of mine, he talks about minimum 8 years. He said that on our remote sessions in 2020, it takes 8 years to really develop a rider. And so, that I was seeing from way out. And then when my kids are young and lo and behold, our younger son, he just finished his college soccer career, and his story and learning about patience. He was not recruited from Montana. Montana's not exactly the pipeline for soccer. And he was cut his freshman year, and he went on to be a huge leader in the 4 years. And that's an example of how my time with young athletes really helped me as a parent. And then in turn, our own sons taught me so much about athletics. Some things that I haven't learned from my own athletes. So it's kind of a two-way street that way too. Yeah. I don't know if I answered that question.
No, I just think it's interesting because you have this unique perspective of working with youth so much.
Yeah.
That, right? Like that to think like, oh, well, now I think I probably have learned all this stuff about how I'm going to handle how I can potentially bring that to bear. But I think it's interesting to hear you say that they provided you with additional. You were like, oh, I get it. I understand now.
I've seen you.
What's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on at home, such that this is the way you're acting here in Belgium. This is I get it.
Right.
Yeah. And now, are you able to understand TikTok now? Can you help us understand TikTok? We're trying to figure it out on this podcast. If you can figure it out, then
my students keep me current. That's for sure.
That's
Every
good.
day I'm learning something, which is one of the reasons I still love teaching. But yeah, I mean, our own sons, I spend now, our younger son is very involved in international soccer. He's been working for a club in Denmark, and we've talked about, in soccer, we're talking about a humongous funnel, even in this country, but you want to talk about European soccer, and cyclocross is just a very, very small world. And, but yeah, talking about development models and pyramid models and programs and it's just so fun to just talk for hours about that stuff with our boys. I really enjoy it. So, yeah.
And I think that there's
now, I guess.
yeah, for sure. And I think there's two versions of that. Is where I was going to go with this is, we're talking about what these things mean to you, and we have a lot more that we're going to dig around, but thinking about developing an athlete, as a, for lack of a better term, machine. If there's it's 8 years to make, robot X. There's definite steps to get from A to Z in that process, but the thing that is not covered in that is everything we've just been talking about.
Right.
And yeah, we can discuss, and this is probably another time that we can have you back on the show, is to talk about truly what the development cycle looks like for USA and USA Cycling, and what does it look like, where are the outages, and having a real conversation about that. But this seems to be like the meat of what we're talking about is developing a human being and developing somebody that's capable of going into the world and engaging with other human beings and being compassionate and being empathetic and being somebody that motivates others, whether it has anything to do with cycling or not. So is there, in your experience of teaching English and teaching cyclocross, and by proxy teaching kids how to be adults and teaching them how to, grow up and function in the world, is there a process to that? Is there an 8-year development curve to help me be an adult?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Can we put John, you're moving to
Put me on the
Montana.
path. Put me on the path.
No,
Let's talk about it.
I mean, it's that's sort of what I would call the character piece to sort of my programs. There's a curriculum. I mean, the way I sort of integrate it in Europe, when we just did this, a couple of weeks ago, is that we might take a character trait. Here it is. I remember, say, teachable spirit. That's number one on the list. Like, what is your attitude towards somebody who's willing to take real time to help you develop? And so we'll be sitting around in our nightly evening meeting after dinner, like, okay, can anybody share an example of somebody, they saw it in someone else or themselves today, an example of teachable spirit, where the athlete took the constructive criticism, took the feedback as a compliment. If somebody's willing to give you the time, you need to consider that a compliment, even if it's not what you want to hear. And so we spent a lot of time talking about teachable spirit, discipline, and all the ramifications of discipline, whether it's, remembering your gear to go to the race, or how you're approaching your training. And so it's very organic the way we work it in. And I'm indebted to my fellow coaches and mechanics. They're part of the meetings too. And my European host, Bob, I really look up to him. And it's a very collective process, becoming better together, and definitely working on the holistic, the character, the things that are, the emotionality and the mentality of cycling, not just the physicality. And that gets into sort of my approach to coaching, which is another question. But anyway, that's kind of to answer your question. There are definite steps.
So, okay. Jumping off of that, you've worked with people in Europe, you've worked with teams in Europe, you've worked with multiple sponsors, multiple governing bodies, USA Cycling, you've been a contractor, you've worked with them directly. You've seen the sausage being made at various different levels of the cycling infrastructure, and you probably more than a lot of people that listen to this show understand the machinations of how things work. And we're recording this the second week of January 22. Rob DiMartini is out. We have new leadership within USA Cycling, and now we're talking about these kind of teachable moments and being able to be open to criticism and having an adult conversation about investing the time in making this thing better. Is there a way to take what you're talking about and fillet it across the grander cycling scene, from a USA Cycling perspective, from a domestic cycling perspective? Because we were talking a little bit about it in the green room before recording.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tough conversations that cycling needs to have with itself. And Doug and I both joke about it, that, cycling is a small fraction of a small fraction of a small fraction of a small fraction of a sport that is kind of popular elsewhere outside of the United States. And we're here living in the United States advocating for trying to get more people into the sport of cyclocross. So, but we're still so endemically tied to it has to be done this way, it has to be done this way, it has to be done this way. So is there a way, and I guess this is probably a question for both of you guys, like, is there a way to start to parlay some of these learnings that you've had into the broader scope, into the broader conversation, to begin to admit maybe some of these things aren't working and maybe we need to start to pull the chocolate chips out of the cookie dough?
Yeah. So I think great question. And I'll answer it. Start with answering it with a story. I mean, one of my, I don't know, just one of my strengths is my contacts in Europe. And so I have a lot of really pretty regular discussions with Gerben Dickneck, Dutch national coach, Francois Trerier, the French national coach, Sven. I talked to Sven and Leeuwenhout for an hour, and a lot of other Erwin Dravekin, a lot of these big thinkers in the sport. And Gerben, this is a great story. So Fem Van Empel, U23 world champion.
Yeah. Yep.
So I said, Gerben, like, and this is part of the answer, like, we need to build a better system. We need to build a better system in this country. So Fem Van Empel in Bogense, Denmark, that day of the World Championships, 2019, Maddie Monroe is a first-year junior. She's 17. She's racing in the U23 women's race. Maddie is the same age as Fem Van Empel. On that day in January of 2019, Fem Van Empel is playing soccer. She's playing soccer. And I said, Gerben, like, and a year later, she's world champion in Ostenda. Or no, wait, that's not right. In 2021. So there was Dubendorf. She was 5th. And then she won two years later. So in a year
she's
and a
doing
half.
a whole different sport.
And she would ride a bike because every Dutch person rides to school. They ride to the bakery. But she goes to a provincial training. Gerben has the Dutch program. Where do the top 7 women in the world come from? There's a Dutch provincial program. They have all these different, Gerben has all these different coaches running all these different weekend camps. And then the better ones, Fem Van Empel starts to rise. She comes to the centralized one in Alphen, and Gerben takes notice. And a year and a half later, she's world champion. We need to cast a wider net. We need to broaden the funnel. We need to deepen the pool. And so that is something that I'm really fired up. And Van Empel's out there in this country, and we've just got to do a better job of finding them. And I've talked to Brendan Quirk, the new CEO of USA Cycling, like in his, and also in a recent podcast, he talks about that, about broadening and broadening the funnel or whatever. And I'm really encouraged by that. I'm really excited for that, because I think that, you need to have, the top of the pyramid, but you've got to have this sort of systemic feeder program going. And there's a lot of great programs out there already, but we just need to organize and systematize a little bit and just coordinate and collaborate a lot better than we're doing.
And I think we're missing this massive issue. I saw a post today, and I sent it to John, where it was from 2009, and it was a picture of everyone who was running Velo News. And, like, no offense, Velo News, and
50
people
Shades
in
of
that
White.
photo, like, it was 50 Shades of White. It was everyone was white. Like, it was a bunch of middle-aged white dudes. And cool. Like, appreciate all you've done. Thank you for, you're probably all still there. Except for Neil Rogers, who is the person who posted that, who is no longer there. And that's fine, but we have to fix that, because the challenge this sport has, it is only looking into the same endemic places consistently.
Yep.
And my question to you, as someone who's coached youth and found talent in these spaces, how do we make this thing that is so endemically just it's white and pasty. It's the three of us on this call, right? It is this thing. How do you make it appealing to people to walk into and feel comfortable? How do we change that? I mean, you deal with students of every different stripe in your teaching career. How do you make this accessible to them and knock that barrier down from a teaching perspective?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean it's you take the students you have and you move them along, and they're, I mean, teaching public school grounds you, and it really does. And it's all sort of here for me, but in cycling it's a lot more difficult, and it's something I've thought a ton about. And I really have worked hard on it to work on the inclusion and diversity of the summer camp as a really good spot to start. And talking to various clubs and who's sort of starting to be ready to come to a camp like that. And it's something I'm really dedicated to trying to figure out, because we've got to do it. We absolutely have to do it. And I had the same thought when I saw that photo you're talking about today.
I'm glad you saw the photo and thought the same thing.
I thought the exact same thing. But yeah, it's NICA, but that's still somewhat expensive. We have various groups here in town and biker loaner programs and all that, but it's not easy. It's just I've tried to work with the cross country running teams, which you see some diversity there, and but it's just, I don't have any answers. It's just something I'm really dedicated to trying to figure out.
We just got to dig. We got to dig in that space.
Yeah.
And this is where I go back to, something else that we mentioned before we were recording is, Doug and I sit here in a hotbed of cyclocross talent that was built by a few people. I mean, Mitch popped in and left a comment, and he's one of those people that has been instrumental. Everybody that's been a part of the Lionhearts program and in developing that program, there's so many things that they've done that Doug and I have kind of either vocally or silently contributed to. But seeing what you do, seeing the accomplishments that you're having, completely irregardless of a result sheet and UCI points and so on and so forth, but seeing what is capable of a red zone in Louisville or a Lionhearts program here in Cincinnati, and watching older kids mentor younger kids, watching a bike that is an 09 Redline that is a 48 go through its
12 children.
Spencer Petrov rode it, and then younger brother rode it, and then it went through the rest of the kids, and it still has it has hydraulic brakes on it now. Everything is upgraded, but it's still the same bike that's reliving all of these different lives, because somebody coming into the program maybe doesn't have access to those things. And I think back to what you said about there's so many pieces of this puzzle that are already working, but what's the glue that binds all of those things together, and how do you take all of those disparate programs and try and bind them together the way that you're talking about the Dutchies doing? Is how, like, I don't know. It's almost hyperbole that of me asking the question at this point of, like, how do we bind all these things together? Because there are these programs all over the country, and if we can figure out how to connect them a little bit better, and still give them their autonomy to function and run as they do, and behave the way that they do, and have the vibe of the city, because Cincinnati is going to be different than Indianapolis and Columbus and etc. But give them some sort of organization and some sort of, even if it's just visible oversight of, like, I see something happening on these results, and they're always tied to this specific number. What's going on with this 10-year-old kid? Like, is there a kernel there that we can play with, and we can get him in front of, or her in front of, Geoff, and have him do his wizardry to turn them into, 8 years down the road, turn them into the robot that we're talking about and an adult all at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a vision that I kind of had, and now I don't know, I don't really have a role in that way, but other than, sort of spreading my program and trying to grow my program and trying to, but I've talked to Pete Weber all the time, or not all the time, but, I've talked to him about this development. He's a very kindred spirit, and Chris Merriam is CX Hares. He's got a couple of riders in the World Championships. We talked about trying to coordinate some sort of group that could sort of start to coordinate this, working with USAC and just trying to systematize them. And I remember back when I was racing on the road and in the mid 80s, Montana, you had to win the road race in Montana to go to nationals. There was a quota based on different regions of the country. California got like 12 or 20 guys got to start the national championships on the road, cat 1s and 2s, and Montana got 1. So one year I won the state road championship. I got to go. But could you create like a regional map and have not provincial trainings, but regional trainings? Canada's doing a little bit of that, I've noticed. And so these are like ideas that have kicked around forever and just things that I'd love to, I don't know if the USA Cyclocross committee talks about these things. I would love to serve on that committee, but it's just, there just needs to be better coordination and collaboration, so we can tap into these resources and these riders that are out there and wherever they're from, Tulsa or LA or wherever.
Yeah, I think a putting someone at the point of the spear, right? And saying, okay, hey, you in this 6-state region, this area, you're going to be the person that's going to kind of let us know what's going on and let us know
just
who
be
may
the
be
blind
right
spot detector.
Just be like, I don't know, this kid's parents are a nightmare. Like we don't want them anywhere near. The kid's great, but the parents are absolute demons. Like it wouldn't matter if the kid was doing cyclocross or playing football. We don't want them anywhere near our program, right? Like you got to have somebody who can check your 6. And
he's laughing because he's seen it.
He knows what's up.
But I would never hold that against the kid.
No, don't hold it against the kid, but right, you got to understand the landscape, right? Like it's a larger thing than just knowing the kid can perform, right? Like there's other pieces to, like, do they have the right support system? And if not, can we put it behind them? Can we build the things that need to be around them? But if you were able to put these kind of pieces together, I like how you think about this. Like, let's put somebody over here in the West. Let's put somebody over here in the East. And to help identify that talent and bring it together where it's a team of people working collaboratively to look at how we approach this holistically, instead of it being a like, hey, I'm out for my kid. I'm out for my kid going to nationals and smoking all these kids. Like, how do we build something that's greater than ourselves?
So to that point, and both of you are guilty of it in the last 2 minutes, is the same thing that we see a lot of people that are invested in the sport do, is they automatically assume that they are the one responsible for doing that specific job.
But we're not.
You're already, so whether it's anybody that's part of Lionhearts, it's you, Geoff, it's anybody part of CX Hares, or Pete, anybody that we just talked about, they're already doing a thing. They're already masters of that specific thing. We don't need to have them take on something that they don't have experience with, it's going to dilute what they're doing and what they've been successful at. But we're all guilty of it because we think we see an outage, we want to go get it, and we see like this could work, but you leave the thing that you're already successful with, which then it starts to kind of have some fractures, and then you have to go back and you have to rebuild it, and then you're giving up on the thing that is like the broader piece of it. So net from, all I'm saying is broader net from an athlete's perspective, but also a leadership perspective.
Yeah.
I think both of those things are kind of crucial to making kind of this piece work. But I'm hopeful. Like I want to, same thing as when we had Rob on the show. Like there were a lot of unanswered questions in that, and I wanted to be hopeful that that he would follow through on some of those things, and here we
Sure.
are. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
hopeful.
You know, Eurocross Academy, this summer we had 28 kids in Vermont. We couldn't do the camp in Montana, but that's on a very, very small scale. That's the idea.
Exactly.
28 riders came from California, Colorado, Oregon, and all over the Eastern Seaboard. And then what, 7? Well, my goal was to bring 15, 16s this year for the first time, but all the races were canceled. But I think 7 on paper, 7 out of 14 originally would have come from Vermont to Europe. And that's kind of, that pyramid, levels of the pyramid, and that's the goal. So
yeah, I mean, you're doing this. So let's talk a moment about that, because I think this is kind of where we want to like kind of put the shine on the point. Like, you're doing this in Europe. You're bringing people to Europe and saying, hey, let me help you navigate this space. You're doing this thing. We talked about how your teaching style works through that. This is obviously a goal of yours to develop these athletes and figure that out and figure out how this works. But I'm curious why at 62 this still matters to you. Like, why does this matter to you, Geoff? Like, why does developing these athletes, why does this matter to you?
Yeah, great question. I asked myself that a lot, really. Because I am 62, almost 62, and yet I have this fervor, this real drive to work with young people. It's intrinsically compelling for me, and it's joyful, and it's something that I've always been motivated by. I've never ever had a problem with motivation. And I'm still learning. We have a lot of podcasts in this country. We talk about the science of coaching, and you absolutely need the science of coaching to excel on a bike. We don't talk that much about, and again, I think I said this in the green room, the generalist approach, but I'm learning so much about how to train now that I'm more focused on it. When we were in Belgium, like, I guess the concept of the art of not the science of coaching, but the art of coaching, and using things like analogous thinking. That's kind of how I coach, and I'm super charged up about that and how I coach. I remember talking to Curtis before in Cincinnati, I think this year. Like the Andre Agassi, great tennis player. His strength was taking the ball on the rise. He would hit the ball before it started to drop in tennis, and it kept all of his opponents on the back foot. So I say, okay, there's an analogy in there. So I talked to Curtis. Hey, Curtis, every corner of this race, I want you to hit that pedal stroke just a split second sooner. Hit the ball on the rise. Think about that in this race. And that kind of coaching, I'm really sort of determined to sort of learn more and just keep working on. When we're in Belgium, those guys are training. We're in the forest. I call it forest training. Those guys are all training, different teams. Paul Salzen's there. Balois Trek is there. Tormans is there. We're with Desha, because we have a relationship with Desha Hensmains now. We're here, and it's just like buzzing on a Wednesday. You just got to watch out, because here comes Toon and Tice Arts. They're in a little duo doing intervals in the forest. That's the kind of training that our riders should be doing. It's not about going out on the road and, you got to do your road intervals and stuff. But those are kinds of things that I want to keep incorporating into my work, because that's how I think we can get faster. So why am I doing it? Working with young people is a gift. And, it's a joy. And I'm a super morning person. And every morning I get up early, whether it was in Belgium, I get up, go for a run, and have breakfast before I wake up the riders. I always do that. I always wake up the riders, top of the morning to you every morning. And during those quiet moments, there's a certain sort of peace that comes. It's like a a hush, as David Brooks refers to in his book, The Road of Character, like Road to Character. It's a hush. It's a peaceful moment of joy where I don't know. I just like working with young people and giving back. Really, that's it.
Hearing you talk about it, it
You can feel it.
yeah, you can feel it, but the piece that I take from that is, yeah, there's so much endemic love in you that you want to share, and there's so much knowledge that you have that you want to dispel, but the things that you get elevated about are the things that are you in your process, and the things that are on your journey that are continually teaching you and continually challenging you and broadening you and stretching you. And that's not at all me saying that it's those are selfish endeavors, but there is definitely some sort of intrinsic value to giving of yourself, and that self-discovery, I think, is a huge part of it.
Yeah. Why would you continue doing it if it didn't do that for you?
Right,
Right.
right, and
Right.
I think, hearing you talk about it and kind of being able to take a little bit of a distance from it, and to kind of be a mirror for you, that's what I'm hearing is you're on your path, and you are trying to digest and consume as much knowledge and as many experiences and as many different ways of exploring who you are and how you engage with the world as possible before you cash your last check.
Yeah. 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 I don't know how to respond, but yeah,
So,
that's
okay, so let's talk about, you know, you're at the pay window for the last time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how like if it's, the whatever the gravel lot in 2050 is going to be, when
Jesus.
Doug and I are probably not here anymore.
2050. Who's doing the show?
Not I don't know. Your kid. That's how about that?
Oh God.
Pass it
Dear
down.
Lord.
Second generation. Um when people talk about your story, and they dig up whatever the version of the internet is at that point, and somebody figures out how to watch this or listen to this, and they hear your story and they hear the things that you're passionate about, and they look you up on whatever Wikipedia is at that point and see the statistical accomplishments that you've been linked to. What do you want the kind of paragraph to be? What do you want that memory of you to be, in terms of whether it's impact on the world in general or the specific sport of cycling and cyclocross?
oh, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that. I don't
Even
know.
if it's where you're at right now, because
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it's the same thing in 10 years, but it might be right now.
Yeah, I think my parents always talked about, you know, make the world a better place. I'm sure many parents wanted that in their kids, and that's where it started. I mean, it's just, you don't do 35 years of teaching for the money. You don't do it for I mean, you do it because it needs to be done. It needs to be done. It's these, especially now. And I mean, this most recent camp was one of the more challenging things I've ever navigated with COVID. I mean, it was challenging and stressful, and yet I want to do it to create opportunities, and I want to drive this sport forward and help young people figure out this world, and through literature, through athletics, through just mentoring and talking to them, and giving back. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but that's what really drives me is that discourse, that dialogue with them. And yeah, I'm not very eloquent here.
So here's an important question. This is something that you obviously care about. You care about giving back. You care about growing other people, whether it's through teaching or whether it's through coaching. This is something that is definitely like the Geoff Proctor space, right? This is you. If you could look back in your years, who is on your leaderboard of people who inspired you to be this way?
Well, a lot of European names, but athletes I've worked with, Jonathan Page, Jeremy Powers, those guys, think the world of them. And then, guys like Sven and Lars Boom. I talked to Lars Boom the other day in Zolder. A lot of these guys that are in the sport, I really admire their passion. And like I said, Noel Dionquiera and Bob de Snotter, these Belgian guys that I've worked with. When I was on the UCI commission, Helen Wyman, I really enjoyed working with her. I think that was one of Clara's first years doing a block, maybe 2017, 2016. So those folks in the sport, obviously, my close contacts, my colleagues here. It's a very wide bowl of people that have influenced me, and I'm indebted to them. My parents, fellow teachers, wherever. Yeah, it's a big collective process.
It's good that it's a big collective process, right? It's good that it's all of those people, because I think that it's too easy for us to especially nowadays, to cast our net pretty narrow, or just look on social media and not have the real relationships that grow us and allow us to become better people.
Yeah.
And I also like that list it's not all coaches, it's not all athletes, it's not all people related to the cycling sphere. It's a broad swath of, like you said, teachers, parents, family members, people outside of any of those things, but also this huge chunk of folks that are within this, tight sphere of your true passion in cycling. And I think that speaks volumes to perspective and depth and quality of thought as well.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to maybe spending a little more time doing this rather than having to balance the teaching all the time at this stage. And I still want to work with young people. So I want to be around that, maybe just be able to focus a little more on the athletic side. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So that's kind of my next thing. You're ready to look into next season, right? We're going to wrap this season. What's next? Where are you at? What are you and all that sort of stuff? Where are you at this point?
Well, I want to really continue to build Eurocross Academy. We need more resources to make things work better. And so that's the first thing I want to really work on. And then I want to continue to work with USA Cycling to build this pathway and try to get things, I don't know, just more clear and more sort of, just make the sort of this pathway or this pipeline more accessible and broaden and deepen and all those good things. I also want to help the riders sort of on a individual basis as sort of a consultant advocate, because I really notice when I talk to all these riders, they need help. They need help with somebody who can coordinate their coach with their sponsor, with their club, with their parents, with their, they need help coordinating all that, because I'll sit down and I'll talk about the selection document for Worlds or something with them. And they often, we do this in the summer camp, but they often don't know how you make the Worlds team and what do you need to do and what races, and they just need more advocacy and more coordination in their own little world. And that's another piece I want to help them with. So those are sort of 3 cyclocross goals I have. And I want to continue to work in my network and learn from a lot of these other people in the sport, and especially like how to build the resources. We need to have, like, I really like to have with the European American connection, like some sort of global sponsorship to where it's a two-way, and having the resources to do that. That's a big part of work that I need to do and keep working on. So yeah. And continuing to teach. I mean, it's every day. Well, I mean, we'll see where it all goes, but it's,
We'll see if you go remote tomorrow. Let's
Yeah.
just hope that everything's good in Atlanta. So.
Hey, a town just near us just went remote, and it's boy, it is an edgy environment right now. And
Cincinnati Public went remote today.
really,
Yep.
yeah,
Well, tomorrow. Today was their last.
They announced today, yeah.
yeah, and living that life every day, it's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, I'm literally having kids out, and you just keep plugging along. I really don't want to go back to remote, but if that's what we need to do, that's what we need to do. And I'm still double masking and triple vaxxed and everything else, just plugging in there.
We'll
So,
send you a hazmat suit from Cincinnati. Look, I'm telling you what, I'm
Yeah.
about to wear one to work at this point. So
oh man, it's I'm hoping, like, they talk about the spike and maybe pulling out of this a bit, but boy, it's tough. Yeah.
well, it's scary in all of those spaces, and you've just been over to Europe and doing all that stuff and traveling and doing all that stuff, and I've traveled. It has been a wild couple years, but it's been interesting and awesome watching you still be able to navigate this since cyclocross came back this year in Europe, and seeing you be able to do this and seeing you be able to bring the kids over and make that stuff happen. I think the work that you're doing to help broaden their experience and give them the navigation of how to address some of this stuff is something that is hard to do unless you've been over there. You can see it from, like, there are pros that are now contemporaries of mine who are like, no, I'm going over there for 2 weeks and I got to figure out how to eat and like learn Belgian, it's like, okay, learn Dutch. This is a thing. Like, it is awesome watching you be able to give these people some sort of guidance through that. And I appreciate you for what you do for all of our athletes who go over there to give them that experience early on. It's very valuable, and it goes noticed, not unnoticed.
Oh, thank you. I mean, as I said, this particular year, that was priority one. It was get through the camp safely. And, we had to make some sacrifices. I literally had to keep the riders telling me couldn't go to the store anymore. Like, we masked the whole time. We tested day 0, day 1, day 7, and then departure date. And it was, I'm not in a position to stay there for another 10 days if somebody tests positive.
Nope.
And it was just, we dialed in the testing. We had a lab in Herentals that I sort of really developed a relationship with and turned on the charm. And they treated us like athletes, as Europeans often do. And we got our PCR results back in 5 hours. Like, try to do that in this country.
Yeah. Try to get a test in 5 hours in this country.
All you have to do in Herentals is be like, we're cyclocross athletes, and they're like, oh
yeah,
yes,
no,
excellent.
that wasn't far from the truth. And so, but I really, parents are entrusting me with these kids, and I don't know, the teacher and me, like, that was priority one. And it was kind of weird, like running around the pit, running to the van, schlepping bikes, and having this double mask on. Like, I couldn't even breathe. I mean, it's one thing in the classroom, but when you're running around, it was tough. And in Namur, we had fans we had spectators the first race, and then that was it. But boy, it was I'm humbled by the fact that we made it through, and I'm really proud of the riders for cooperating and really living in our bubble and so on. So
yeah, well,
excellent on all that.
Well, like Doug said, I think it speaks volumes to the level of trust that people have in you, but also have in the program that you've been a part of building, that they're willing to, during the second year, during the worst spike that we've seen of cases globally, that they're willing to entrust their what'd you call them, Doug? Adult children? Is that what you call them?
Adult
Full-size
babies.
adult children?
Full-size
Yes.
babies.
Full-size babies. To entrust you with their full-size babies to go across the pond into a country that they don't speak the language of, that they don't understand the food in, and that they don't understand, most of the culture. So other than bike racing. So I think there's so many pieces of that speak to the trust that you've built up, and the accomplishments that you have, whether they are called out or not. I think just having that speaks volumes to kind of the legacy that you're leaving. So I think hang out with us for a minute, because we got to pay some bills, but then we're going to ask the final question. Geoff, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're still detoxing from traveling back and trying to reacclimate to time schedules. And you said you landed at 11:30 and then you were in the classroom at 5:30 the next morning. So I don't even know how that's possible on an international flight, to be able to function.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you did it. So kudos. And now you're talking to us. So even more kudos for doing that. So, thank you so much for taking the later part of your afternoon with us. Man, it's so enjoyable for us to be able to each time we have somebody come on the show, be able to ask them about the things that they care the most about. And you speak so eloquently about them. And like I said, all of the trust that people put in you speaks volumes to who you are, what you have done, and what you're capable of doing for people. So I think it's I feel privileged that we got a chance to hear you talk about it and share your passion with us, because it's already shared by us, but it's cool to hear the way that you talk about it, because it's totally different than I think every other person that we've had on the show, that is, whether it's athletes or coaches or sponsors or anybody, the way that they talk about cyclocross.
Well, I mean, I'm just really, really thankful to you guys. Do such a good job of drawing things out. It's a testament to your presence, your radio presence, whatever you want to call it. But I really,
I'm just nosy. Geoff. That's like all it is I'm super nosy.
No, you guys have a gift. You know how to, make somebody feel comfortable. It's my second podcast. I mean, I really appreciate being asked to come on and share some of my thoughts but you guys do an incredible, your show, like any chance I get, I'm turning it on. Man. So
dude, that means,
and so many great advocates you have, like, so you really encompass like the catalog that is cycling. That's what I love, the diversity. And so awesome.
That's a great advertisement for the gravel lot. Like, just snip that portion out and just make that an ad.
Ads now, Geoff. Let me know where to send your residual check, and we'll send it to Montana. We can make it happen. So as we wrap the show today, that's another chance for all of us to thank all of you for listening, just like Geoff does every week, because he's an exceptional pebble. We're so glad to have him. So thank all of you for listening and engaging and making TGL what it actually is and why it's so successful. Without all of you, we could not actually do this. So keep making all this content, doing all these things. Please keep engaging with us. Without a doubt, we love having you. In addition to all of you supporting the show by being here and listening to us, being on our Patreon, doing all that sort of stuff, we also encourage you to slide on over to all of our partners who support us in making the show for you and allowing us to share with the world. We encourage you to visit all of their things, show them love so that they can continue to make you this thing. I don't know. It's a whole lot of nouns.
Hashtag transition.
A couple verbs. Yeah. That.
Ad reads. Go here.
Go support the ad people.
Well, it's another year, and normally by now you've probably hopefully gotten your team kit order or your own order for new kit.
Maybe you're not even
figured out.
Maybe you don't.
Or maybe you don't care about that, and you just need some new clothes, and that's where Be Free Ride Bike Cycling Apparel comes in. And so hopefully, if you guys have been listening for any length of time, you guys know why we love this. And it's not because I'm a designer and I get to put whatever I want on the jerseys. It's because Doug and I care a lot about how jerseys and bibs fit and outerwear fits, and we get to pick sleeves, we get to pick cuffs, we get to pick fabrics, we get to pick all of those things in addition to what it looks like. So it is truly, truly personally tailored to your needs, fully customizable. If you have questions, if you want to go see more examples, head over to bfrbcycling.com and take a look at how they can help you, and or if you are part of a team, your entire team get outfitted for 2022, 2023, and whatever else the future holds, because I'm not even gonna mention what the future might hold, because
No one knows. It's no
Nobody
crystal
knows.
ball that no one wants
Yeah.
to. No one
It's
wants
just
to look
foggy.
into.
That's
Yeah.
all.
So, come back later. What did the thing say? Like, try again later.
Yeah, try again later.
But you know what? If you are waking up and it feels like one of those foggy mornings, you know what you need to do? You need to pour yourself some Grandpa
I'm gonna
Brothers
go back to
coffee.
bed.
Right. Well, I mean, you can do that too, but you should probably start your coffee maker before you do that. So go to the link in our show notes and head on over to grimporbrothers.com right now and get your hands on amazing premium hand roasted coffee from Dan and all the folks over to Grimpor. Dan doing yeoman's work for cycling in so many different ways. He supports so many good causes, so many amazing people giving back to the community of cycling that he loves so much. So go buy coffee from Dan, support the cause you want to support, but most importantly, you should get on the subscription service, because if you get on the subscription service, you will end up getting a free bag of coffee. And we all know when you get down right to that end of coffee and you don't have any more Grimpor Brothers, it's Grimpor Brothers coffee doing amazing things for cycling all around.
Hey, Doug, you know what's better than Grimpor Brothers coffee?
What?
Free Grimpor Brothers coffee.
That is correct.
Yeah, it is. It is really a dark day though, because I always have the generic, big box brand of
it's
coffee.
Like the spare bag. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just there. It's just the garbage coffee, and it is like stressful when you're like, oh, I think I can get one more brew out of this.
It's even worse technically, right? In my house now, and no, Floyd, don't come kill me, but it's not a thing because that's not allowed.
Then you get deaded.
I get deaded. So
yeah. And last but not least, Hand Up Gloves, which is supplying multiple sports with apparel in a range of designs and fits to allow your personality to shine. Whether it is you are of my vein, where I am wearing all black and I look like I'm kind of vanishing at the bottom of the screen here, or Doug's, where he would love all of the colors, as you can see with our Season 5 graphics. They are very Doug inspired this year. Whatever those are. Actually, I think these graphics would look great on some Hand Up Gloves, by the way.
So I think so too.
We got to get with Troy. Yeah.
Hey, Troy.
I think we can make that happen. I think these would actually be pretty on brand for them.
I think so.
Regardless, whether it's snow sports, it's golf, it's bikes, whatever it is, let your personality shine through with the apparel that you wear. It's also an American company based out of Chattanooga, run by amazing people. You can listen to each of their go listen to their episodes, figure out what Hand Up is all about, learn more, get invested in them, and then click the show notes, the link in the show notes, and use code Pebble $sign to save 10% off everything at Hand Up's website.
We are going to have some Hand Up athletes on the show again this year, so we're very excited to talk to some of them. We've got some stuff in the works, so there'll be some good folks coming out of the Hand Up crew. They've got an amazing lineup of athletes they sponsor,
very, very diverse,
very diverse and awesome human beings, some huge names. So hopefully, Pebbles, we're working on it. So let us know who on
Doug,
the
you got to under promise and over deliver. You're over promising right now. You got to tone down expectations a little bit.
Right, we're gonna have just Doug and John for the next
Get ready.
4 episodes.
You're gonna hear us talk about being overwhelmed every day.
Yeah, it'll be pretty much it. That's our personal chat back and forth every day. How's everyone? Is everyone sick? Yes, everyone's sick. I'm so overwhelmed.
I'm so stressed. How do we navigate this?
So thank you all, as always, all you Pebbles, for being here, old and new. We love hearing from all of you. So make sure you let us know what you want to hear, what you want to do. We can't continue to do this without your support. So head on over to our website, visit there, subscribe to the feeds, do all the things, like us on all the socials at The Gravel Lot. We are thegravellot.com. Become a Patreon supporter. Join us every other Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. unless we're talking to someone who may happen to be in Europe and needs to go to bed. We'll let you know ahead of time before that happens and give you a heads up. YouTube, Facebook, Streamlabs, all those different places will be over there and make all of that happen.
Our intro and outro music is from none other than Water. You guys know him as Waterboy. We loved his music so much that we did not change it for this year, so we are sticking with it because we feel like it's probably the most on-brand music we've had for the Gravel Lot. So the link in the show notes to learn more.
So, Geoff, you've heard this before, and you know we're going to ask you to give the Pebbles something to take home with them after our conversation today. We've talked about your career, we've talked about your cycling career, your teaching career, and really about why this means a lot to you and the work that you're doing in the space. So what would you want the Pebbles to take home from our conversation today? What do you want them to remember and kind of like bring back as a nugget?
I guess, the idea that in looking at all these development models, think of their progression in terms of a pyramid. And this is how I've drawn out the ECA pyramid. You're broadening the base, you're moving up, you're trying to achieve, some sort of level of achievement and result in athletics, but try to then also equally so, whatever you want to achieve in terms of results, that then it becomes much bigger. And there's another whole pyramid of becoming a purpose-driven adult and finding something intrinsically compelling and finding joy in that, so that you see both sides of this continuum. I mean, that's really important to me. It's not just about results and selections. It's about, becoming a better person and sort of transcending your results to sort of the bigger picture and giving back and thinking about those that helped you. And that's sort of, that's the perspective of a teacher and a coach. So that's, I guess, something that I would hope young athletes would take with them. Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in, Doug and I we've both raced bikes, and it's easy for both of us to get caught up into the spiral of wanting to go achieve a thing and sell everything else out. Like, give up the Friday night date night to, sleep in or go to bed earlier, whatever the thing is to sacrifice. And it's so good to hear somebody that is at your level of accomplishments with so many people at your fingertips, or so many people that are looking to you for guidance, giving that perspective of, okay, so you win the world championships. What now? Like, is that the last day of your life? Like, is that the pinnacle? Like, what else is there? Then, okay, maybe there is more than sport, and understanding that there is a broader scope, and that there are so many more people that can benefit from, whether it's your story or whether it's your motivation or the education that you have or things that you can give to the world. Like, there's just so much more that we all have inside of us that we can give to other people.
And what's really cool, John, is that if you can learn to see through the both lenses, if you can, as you're moving up the pyramid and you're maturing as an athlete, if you can learn how to see this other, concurrent side of just, hey, like, this is like formative to who I am as a person. It actually acts as a pressure valve, and it takes the pressure off the achievement to the point where you achieve more. It's amazing. It's like it's magic.
Yeah.
It's magic.
No,
but when you just get so narrow and so focused and so metricized, or whatever the term is, it creates the wrong kind of pressure.
Yeah.
And so I'm fascinated. Every morning in all my camps in Europe, we start with a walk. I wake them up at 8:00 and we go for a 7-minute walk. And some kids want to sleep, but someday they'll appreciate that, I think. And I just visit with them, like, hey, you didn't get into Stanford, or, hey, what, your English teacher, you guys have only written 2 essays this semester? What the hell? Like, person. And then they start to go, hey, it's sort of, I feel like it releases some sort of stress that allows them to perform better. So anyway, that's just what I would leave with. Yeah.
No, that's excellent. There's a depth that can be brought out when you achieve something. It's good if you're looking at the rest of the picture, and I appreciate that. You have to look at that no matter what it is, whether it's with work or sport or whatever. It is a wise way to approach the world. Try to achieve the best you can achieve, but think about the larger ramifications of what you're doing. It's an excellent way to be. Geoff, this has been an absolute blast. It has been so good spending time with you and getting to know you, and sharing this space with you. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We're on Twitter, Eurocross Academy IG.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's Instagram. Sorry. And then Twitter is Eurocross Academy, EuroCX Academy. Yeah.
We will we will tag that in all our posts and put it in the show notes. So folks,
the kids have gotten to them.
Yeah.
The kids got to them.
If folks want to, the best way is probably by email. So no, not on TikTok. Although that was well, we did karaoke for a vocab quiz last week, but
it's getting close. The next year, Eurocross Academy TikTok. It's happening.
I think TikTok would be pushing it with the vocabulary stuff. I don't know. We'll see. But because then I would have to have an account, right? And they would have to let me be in their accounts, and they don't want that. So.
They don't want that. No, they don't want any of that. It's not like Snapchat though. That's good. So just don't do a Snapchat, and I think you're fine.
Yeah.
Well, Pebbles, this has been awesome. Geoff, thank you for being here. John, it's good to open season 5, and this is the best way we could have started it out. Yes. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, you guys, so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Pebbles, thank you all for being here. That's it for this week. So be sure to subscribe, follow, and engage, because as you know, decisions and trails are made by those who show up. So if we don't see you on the show if we don't see you on the trails this week, we'll see you next time. Bye, John.
Bye, Doug.
Thank you.